The soldiers were exhausted. Many of them wanted to fight, but many of them wanted to go home. Everyone wanted this to end. They had arrived outside the city of Brno in early May, and over 100 days later, as the end of the long hot summer approached, they were all still outside, and their commander, Field Marshal Leonard Thorstenson, knew all this, and knew he had to do something. In the early 1640s, Thorstenson led his army towards Vienna, conquering most of Moravia, before turning back home from famous victory over Denmark in 1643. He was then ordered to capture Vienna, the home of the Austrian Habsburg Empire, and in 1645 went back to Moravia through Bohemia. He was one step away from Vienna, and the only city in his way was Brno. The Swedes had 28,000 men when they arrived outside Brno's city walls, and they were joined by another 12,000 through the summer. Thorstenson's soldiers quickly set up the siege and set conditions for the city of Brno to surrender. Once the city fell, the army would then continue on to Vienna. Although it was the third time the Swedes had come to Brno, it was the first siege, and Thorstenson expected to win the city after 1 week. And after Thorstenson left for the second time to go and conquer the rest of Moravia, the people of Brno knew they only had a few weeks to prepare the city before the Swedes would return. And they only had around 1,500 armed men to fight. The soldiers and the people of Brno made sure they had large stocks of food and water for themselves and their animals. They made weapons, repaired the damaged walls, and made the castle as safe as they could by digging deep ditches around them. Finally, they took down all the buildings and burned the ground for over 500 steps from the city walls, so the Swedes could not hide. Most of the citizens of Brno knew what could happen in a siege. The conditions inside the city would become worse as the summer began. They might run out of food, they might have to eat the horses, and actually, this did happen. There would be dangerous disagreements about the best plan, and a disease could make many people sick very quickly. They knew all this, but did not surrender. The siege began on the 3rd of May, 1645, but the city was still safe at the end of August, over 100 days later. In the middle of August, Thorstenson knew he had to do something. The morale amongst his soldiers was becoming very low. So he prepared his men to attack and told his commanders, "Tomorrow we will attack again. We are stronger than them. We have more men than them. We will win the city by midday, or we will leave." The story is that Thorstenson was in the Blue Lion Inn in the edge of the town, and his speech was overheard by the owner of the inn. He bravely went to the castle that night and told the city leaders what he had heard. The people of Brno prepared themselves for another attack, knowing that many of them were going to be killed. They knew that 40,000 soldiers were outside, but in the city there were fewer than 2,000. The next morning, the Swedes began their attack in 6 different places, and it was not long before they were making progress, and it was clear they were winning, although Brno was not yet a Swedish city. Suddenly, the city bells began to ring. They rang 12 times. It was midday. The Swedes were winning, but they were not even close to taking the city. And so, they left. The small city of Brno had won against one of the best, most successful and strongest commanders of armies in the 30 Years' War. But how? Brno had the strong castle. Spielberg has never been taken in battle. They prepared well and worked hard together to support each other. And when the battle came, they rang the bells 1 hour earlier, at 11 o'clock. Today, Brno celebrates and remembers this great event. The bells of Petrov Cathedral in the city center still ring 12 times at 11 o'clock to remember the famous victory of the Swedes. In one of the Brno Square, there is a bronze model of the city showing how it looked in 1645. Finally, there is an astronomical clock in the main square, Náměstí Svobody, that celebrates the victory of the Swedish invasion. Another legend about Torstensson, not just from the siege of Brno, is that he could only be killed by a glass bullet. So at 11 o'clock every day, a small glass bullet with the Brno coat of arms comes out of the clock for one lucky person to keep as a souvenir.